Hi guys, it's me, Fabio Antenore. I'm so happy this day came. I was working in the past 3 months on my new book and my new panel every day, at least 10 to 15 hours. So I'm happy it's finally here. Many of you guys were waiting a couple of months or even years for my new panel because the last panel is not working in Photoshop for a long time because they changed to the new panel or plugin architecture. So here it is, the AFv2 panel, my new panel. I'm happy to talk a bit about how it works and especially all the new features because it's so much bigger than my old panel was. It's not just a luminosity mask panel, it's a workflow panel. This is something I want to make clear. It has so much more than just luminosity masks. What I tried to achieve with this panel is to make Photoshop easy usable, or photo editing in Photoshop easy doable for everyone, even he doesn't has that deep knowledge about Photoshop. Let's talk about the panel itself. It has like three different overviews or three different kind of panels. It is three panels in one. So the first opens always like that. This is the action panel. I call this the action layer or the action panel. These three buttons are here to change like the surface of the panel. The middle one is the luminosity overview, or the luminosity panel, and the last one is the dodge and burn panel. As you can see, only the middle part changed. So we have these 10 permanent buttons in the footer area of the panel, which come in a minute to it. And it also has, like in the menu, some stuff like a reload panel button. If something happens with your panel, you can always reload it. You can go to my website, you can see my workshop, and you can see this explanation video on my YouTube channel. So I forgot that one. This is the manual to the panel. So if you push that button, it opens a PDF with the user manual. The user manual is in English language and in German language. It describes every feature it has, and it makes it easy to work with it. At the end, it also has like a couple of the most important shortcuts, just for you to don't forget this, because not every action is possible within the panel. So sometimes you have to use some shortcuts, even they are here. And then we already come to the German version of it. So yeah, that's it. Let's talk at first about all these permanent footer buttons. To better explain it to you, just activate this mask like that. You can see that's, as you can see, a luminosity mask, but it doesn't matter if you use some of the buttons on the mask or even on like a normal layer, but it makes it easier to show it to you. These buttons are to make it darker or brighter and to make more contrasts to it. So if you push that, it will get brighter. If you push that, it will be darker. And if you push that, it has more contrasts. You can do that as many times as you want. You can also combine those. And it is just like a possibility to tweak your masks at the end if you work with the masks. If you're not happy with that, you can also open the levels on your mask. So you have the possibility to change the mask or whatever, like that. As you can see, that's easy handleable. By the way, just to make it clear, you can also use these buttons on a normal layer. You can also use it like that, or like that, or whatever. So it's also for dodging burn. Sometimes it's easy handy to use that. Feature which I really like is the save mask button. So whenever you have an active mask or an active selection, you can save this selection directly in your channel. Just push this button, give it a name, XX mask, for example, save it, and you have it in your channels. So whenever you need it again, just use the command button and it is activated again. So command and push the mask or touch the mask, like click on the mask, and you have this selection again activated. Let's delete it. So then the next button, that one here, is a new merge layer button. It's some kind of a screenshot of everything which is visible on a new layer. You have to use that whenever you wanna work in a non-destructive workflow, work with filters or whatever. You just push this button. For example, if we have something like that, if it looks like that, and you push this button, you have a new layer which includes everything which was visible. Even if I delete that again, this layer has it still on it. So it's an easy way to work in a non-destructive workflow. We also have the change color button. We will see that a little bit later why we need it. And if you push that, it makes a color saturation layer, which you can use to change the layer which is underneath that. It's always with a clipping mask directly on the layer which was activated before. Then let's go to the next feature. This one is select active. So it's a cool feature if you, for example, have this mask active and you don't remember exactly which luminosity mask you use for that. Just push the select active button and you have a selection of whatever is active at the moment. For sure, you can use that also to make a selection out of that one. It always makes a selection from the activated channel. Then whenever you need to invert the mask, for example, if you have a mask here, you want to invert it, you just push that button and the mask, or not the mask, the selection, sorry, the selection is inverted. And then if you don't need the selection anymore, you just use the deselect button and the selection is deselected. So these are the permanent footer buttons, some of the most important buttons, because you always need these buttons to tweak stuff, to save the mask and whatever. So that's why I decided to make this area permanent. Let's talk about the buttons of the first surface of the action view. Let's delete that first. Now, the first thing you have to do if you work, for example, with multiple exposures like that, you have to make sure they are all aligned. So align all layers, push the button, and all layers are aligned. Now let's talk about the button on the side, the frequency separation button. Maybe that's not the perfect picture to do that, but I will show it to you anyways. If you push that button, it creates a frequency color layer and a frequency details layer. As you can see, this is the detail layer, this is the color layer, and you can use that to change stuff. For example, you see that? If you just want to change the color of some of the flowers without changing the details, you just use the clone stamp. Take the color from here, put it here, and it has still the same, you can see that, it is still the same details here, just with a different color. Same if you want to change some details, go on the work here. Make sure if you work on this layer, you activate the only this layer function. Don't know how it is, how the name is in English, but it's just like you can choose between take all layers, take just that layer and the layer which is underneath that, or change just this layer. In this case, you have to change just this layer. Then you can take something from here, for example, and bring it to here. Make sure 100%. And you can just bring in this. We can also bring in this to this area, and you see you only change the details. You don't change the colors of this area, which is pretty handy in some cases, especially in people and portrait photography. If you want to change like the skin areas which are not perfect or whatever. Then the next button, the generative fill button, is a generative fill button. It's pretty handy if you want to change something short without using the normal tools. So you just have to open that. You need to make a selection and then just push generative fill. And as you can see, it created a new area without this sign. The other button here is the fill width. That's like the old school tool to clone stamp something. Sometimes that works better than the generative fill. That's why I have both. So it's just, if you want to remove that, maybe it works like that. Use the fill width. And also that is pretty cool. Then let's talk about all these buttons. Let's go to another picture to see it a bit better. The first of the buttons is just a cooling warming button. It's pretty cool if you wanna change color of a picture short. They are all with 0 opacity, and you just have to make the opacity stronger, and you can change it to blue, like cooling, and warming is the same. If you want a warmer picture, just use that and you can make everything warmer. It's pretty handy if you want to create some color areas in your picture. So because if I want to use that, I just invert the mask, use the brush, and I'm ready to paint wherever I want. The next two buttons are some kind of masks, and a bit special masks. I really like them. The first one is a color split mask, which gives you the possibility to change warm and cold tones separately. It's always on a color saturation layer, and as you can see, that one made a mask in the warm area and that one in the cold area. So now you have the possibility to change saturation or whatever for all the warm tones, or saturation for the cold tones. And the cool thing, you also can give it like a bit of colorization with colorize check mark. And if you use a colorize check mark, you can bring in some colors in the warm or the colder areas. For example, if you want to make the colder areas a bit more magenta or purple, you can just do that. In the beginning, when you activated this button, you saw that. This is like a Gaussian blur. So sometimes you need to blur it a bit more, just because the border between the cold and the warm tones sometimes is really strong. So if you want to blur that a bit more, you have to have smoother borders. Can you see that? It's now much smoother than it was before. And like that, you can do that less hard. If you use the saturation masks, you can see you have now more saturated areas and less saturated areas. And the cool thing is, like, let me show you at first. If you just use a normal color saturation layer and you just saturate it more, it's like too hard. It's most of the time it doesn't look that cool. So if you do that with one of those masks, it's always a smoother transition. So we go to the saturation masks. This is the mask for the more saturated areas. And as you can see, we now work more in this area which has colors. For example, again, if you use that one, it also pushes all the areas around here which are not that cool. So it's always a much smoother saturation. Same for less saturated areas. You can give them more push. The cool thing is also, if you want to colorize it, for example, let's colorize the less saturated areas. We can do that with still having all the colors in this area, or we also can do the same for the more saturated areas. Now we don't change the color in this area. The saturation masks are pretty handy if you have a picture like that, for example, and you just want to change the saturation of the strongly saturated areas. You can just use this mask, desaturate it, and you just desaturated this area over there. You can also change it a bit in the color if you want, and you don't affect the rest of the picture, which is sometimes pretty handy. And one of the reasons we have these buttons here is also in a case like that, if you want to change the mask. For example, if you want to make this saturated areas stronger, you can also use this to make a stronger mask. Like that, it is more focused on this area than the rest. So it's easy to desaturate just the really strong saturated areas. Let's talk about the next area, the vignetting tools. We have 3 different vignettings. So the first is the soft one. Whenever you create it, it comes with a black mask, so it's not visible. You can use the shift button to see how it looks. And if you like it, you can just invert the mask, or you use your brush to paint on it. Same works for all the other. Vignettes, a strong one, like the name says, it is a stronger vignette. It's really strong. I use that really often just to paint as much as I need. And the last one, the custom vignette, is a bit a special vignette. It comes already with excluded bright areas. So if you use it, it's still a strong vignette, but as you can see, the brighter areas are excluded in this vignette already. So it's a bit special one. But just to make it clear, all the vignettes are made to paint it. They're not made to use it just with a button click, because I always use vignettes or vignettings like that. I paint it wherever I need it. I just don't use it like it comes. Now let's talk about the sharpening area. I have two different types of sharpening in this panel. One of them is the high pass sharpening, the other one is the LAB sharpening. I normally prefer the LAB sharpening because the LAB sharpening is a bit special kind of sharpening. It creates a smart object and opens this smart object, and then it changes the color mode in the smart object into the LAB mode. The LAB color mode is a mode which separates the contrast channel from the color channels. So like that, you're able to sharpen just the contrasts of this picture without changing stuff in the colors, which is a way better version of sharpening, which is just like, it just looks smoother, it just looks cooler. So I always use that, or most of the time use that. You can change the settings if you want. If you're happy with the settings, just press OK. And now you can see the sharpening. It's a pretty smooth sharpening. I really like this. The other way is the high pass. If you prefer high pass sharpening, just use the high pass sharpening. It creates a like high pass layer. You can see how it changed the picture. So just use the radius button. If you're okay with it, press OK. And it is always masked out. So you just invert the mask and you can see your sharpening in the picture. The last two buttons are selection plus or selection minus. This is just if you have a selection of something. For example, if you selected that one and now you want to change something on it and you want to increase or decrease the border a bit, just use this and you have a bigger selection, or make it smaller or whatever. So it's pretty handy if you have to edit stuff, if you have to clone stamp, or if you, for example, you want to fill this. That's pretty cool, because especially if you use the fill with button, you always need a bit bigger selection than the thingies which you want to erase in the picture. Now let's talk about the Luminosity mask overview. This area of the panel is a bit special because, as you can see, you have these two buttons, blended pixels and direct pixels. These two buttons change the scripts which are triggered by all these buttons. So you have the blended pixels, which always creates the masks from the RGB channel, which shows everything which is visible at the moment. So if you use this, for example, you have, let's do something like that. If you have a white point on it, if you use the blended pixel and you create the masks out of it, you can see the mask looks like that. But if you use the direct pixels and you have activated a channel or a layer, it creates a luminosity masks out of this channel. So it's pretty handy if you want to create a luminosity mask from a layer which is a bit lower in your layer tree. You can just do that, because sometimes you have already changed stuff in some layers which are above this, and you don't want to have this in your luminosity mask. You just use this version of the masks. The cool thing about it is also, as you can see, it's a bit darker luminosity mask with more contrast. So it's not the same kind of mask. The masks are made a bit different. So to understand it, it's like every other luminosity mask panel. You have lights, mids, and darks. And as you can see, if you hover over this, you have a button to create all the masks from this area at once. So if you use that, it just creates the masks. And the masks are all created in the channels. So you can activate day from here if you want. You can also delete all together with the delete all button. With this buttons, you can just create the selection out of the mask without creating the mask. So just hit this button and you have the selection, as you can see. Now select it again. This is something a bit special. As you know, whenever you activate something, if you use the selection of a mask, it's no longer in 16-bit. So whenever you need, for a reason, real 16-bit masks, you can just create whatever you want. We have now created here a new empty mask, and you can use this button to directly copy luminosity masks in this channel. The only thing you need to know is you need already created masks. That's why you can use the lights button or like the mix button or whatever. Then it creates you all the masks. And now you can just activate the layer mask and use all of them. For example, let's have a look how it looks if we just create this color layer and now use the mask on it. You can see how you can see that in real time, how it changed. So you can just change the masks as long as you need to find the right one. The cool thing is, it's not only possible on a layer mask. You can also create a new merged layer, for example, and then use this button and you have a black and white version of your picture, or a darker black and white version. Of course, the same is also possible for the mids and the darks. So this is how they work. And once again, if you want to change something, now we have the mask, we use the lights. You use the lights on that one. Now, if you wanna change the mask a bit, you can just use these permanent buttons and you can change it. So you can tweak it as long as you need to make it perfect for you. That's the cool thing of using all these permanent buttons. You can tweak every mask to the point which is perfect for you, for your use. And last but not least, let's talk about my favorite panel overview. Let's talk about my favorite panel surface, the dodge and burn surface. This surface is made to dodge and burn your picture. So it also has the two selection buttons in the footer if you have a selection to change. But the main thing are like these 5 different dodge and burns and 5 different Orton effects, plus an import light and the create fog button. This import light button is useful whenever you want to add some additional light to your picture. For example, in this picture, just create it, then bring it to the area you want. You can use the transformation menu to make it bigger, bring it here. Now, okay, the light doesn't fit perfectly, and that's the moment we will use the change color button, because if you use that, we have the new color saturation layer on that with a clipping mask, and we can just change the light until it looks like we want it. Make it a bit warmer again. Okay, you think it's still not in the right position, you can change position, you can change opacity, and it's a pretty cool and handy action. The next one is the create fog button. Also, that is a pretty cool thing if you want to create a bit of fog or just like make it a bit more misty. Create fog. You can see it's a bit too much like that, but if we use our brush, we can just paint a bit. Now we have a bit of fog in this area. And if you want to change the color of the fog, you just use this color layer and, for example, make it a bit warmer. We use that one. That we maybe use 10% opacity, and we can give the fog a bit of a color. Especially in cityscapes, this looks pretty cool to just make everything a bit in this mysterious mood. And now I have to talk with you guys about my absolute favorite button on this panel, the color burn. Color burn is one of my signature techniques, which I always use to change, not change the colors, but to bring colors to life, to make dodge and burn, but without destroying the colors. Usually, if you make a dodge and burn, especially the burn part, if you make something brighter, you lose color, because the brighter a color is, the less saturated it is. With this one, you can just create this layer. It's a layer which is in screen mode with a mid-tone mask, and then you use your brush tool, you take a color, you make this color a bit brighter, 10% opacity, and now we can paint. We can just push the color in this color. You can also use a different color if you have, for example, a sunset or a sunrise with orange colors and you have not enough from this orange color in your foreground in the light. You can use that to make the light more colorized. And here a bit, then we change the color to this blue. We'll make it bright blue. Do the same over here. And now look what we made in just a couple of seconds. That's why I say that's my most favorite button. That's a technique I always use. I'll use this technique in every picture in the past 5, 6, 7 years. So it's one of my most important techniques and the first time I really talk about it. So it's the first time I show this technique to someone. And not only show it, I made it easy to use, because, you know, if you want to just make this pop more out, do it like that. If you think, no, I want to have a bit warmer light in this area, do it like that. So that's really the most powerful tool to make a picture look beautiful. Then the next button is the dodge and the burn button. The dodge button creates a group with 2 layers, like the darks and the mids layer. It is always masked out with a black mask. And as you can see, we just look under that this one is to darken the picture. So you can use that, for example, with the darks mask. Let's try that one, or let's try that one. Activated. I make it invisible with Command H for hide. 20 and 30% opacity, and we could just darken the picture. And in this technique, the darker parts are not only darker. I changed also some contrasts and micro contrasts a bit, just to make the dark areas looking cool. So you can see that it's darker. The next one is the mids, like dark mids, and same with that. It doesn't make it only darker. It, for example, if you look at this area, it is darker and also it has more contrasts. So you can use that to just push this area a bit, push this area a bit, push this area a bit. Maybe also the water a bit. If you want, you can also desaturate these areas or make it brighter or darker, whatever. There's many options. And if we combine that with this, it looks pretty cool already. Now let's go back to the panel and use the burn. Burn does the same, but in the brighter areas. You see that? Or that one. Even this is usable. Is the best way to use that is again with a mask. So we go to this area, we use a brights mask, or maybe the lights one. We use the mask. We go to the burn overview, and we bring in some. It's just hidden now. See. Or the burn mids. Maybe this is the better with a brights mask. Now, if we put that on top of that, we have the darker area. We have now also the brighter areas, and we have the color burn. And we made some changes in seconds. Maybe it's a bit too dark at the moment, but you know, I was just playing around. Maybe we just don't use that this strong. We can decrease the opacity, and it looks better. Now we have just a bit darker shadows, so that looks cool. In 2 minutes, 3 minutes, without much effort. Then we have also these two buttons. The one is the bright light. Bright light means it's kind of an Orton effect, but it just affects really the brights. Look at this. Can you see it? It just affects the bright areas. It has just a tiny little glow in the bright areas. Or the other one is the paint light. Paint light is, like the name says, is paint light. You again take your brush, take a color, 10% opacity, and now you can paint the light. Also, that looks pretty cool. Maybe in combination, even cooler. Then in combination with a bit of fog. Now look what we have done in this short time. Once again, without doing much. Now let's talk about the Orton effects. I'm pretty sure most of you guys already know what an Orton effect is. For those which doesn't know it, I will explain it a bit. An Orton effect is kind of a blur effect. So it blurs the picture, or especially it blurs the bright parts, the lights, to make the bright areas shine, because light is always shining. So a bit like the bright lights, but it's more the whole picture. And so we have 5 different Orton effects. The first one, strong. Push it. It always comes with black mask. As you can see, it just blurs the bright areas. Again, use the brush, 20 or 30% opacity. and you can paint in pretty nice glow. Next one is the soft glow. Soft glow is something which you usually use in pictures like that. If you use the soft glow, and as you can see, it just makes the clean areas a bit more glowy. Then we have another one. We have the sharp. The problem of most of the Orton effects is that it creates this glow, but it also unsharps the picture a bit. So with the sharp Orton, you have a pretty strong glow, almost like the strong Orton is, but it is still sharp. If you compare this to the strong, if you use this one, it's always a bit unsharp. But with the sharp Orton, it's still sharp. So it's like whenever you want to blur something or whenever you need a glow, but you don't want to make the picture too unsharp, use the sharp Orton. Then we have the soft Orton. Soft Orton is something pretty cool just to create a soft glow, or yeah, to make the picture like softer a bit, especially also for a picture like that. It's a soft glow, and it's just, you know, if just this dreamy feel, especially if you look the area around the water. You can also make it stronger or less strong if you increase or decrease the opacity. So that's a pretty special one. And we also have the dark Orton. The dark Orton is an Orton effect which makes it glow, but also darkens the picture a bit. So if you do that in a picture like that, you can use it as kind of vignette or something. It's just like a blurry vignette. In some pictures it also looks cool if you have it in the whole picture. It's just, you know, it's like a vignetting of your picture, but also with a bit of glow. So sometimes it's also cool to use that. Yeah, that's it. This is the AFv2 panel. Hope you like it. If you wanna know a bit more about how to use it, how to work with it, you can buy my new book, which comes together with a video tutorial for streetscape photography, or you visit one of my workshops. And yeah, I hope you like it. If you have any questions, just reach out to me in a mail or on Instagram in a message or something. And I wish you a beautiful day and much fun editing your pictures.